My next guest is not Seamus Heaney, but just a week or two ago he was in a pub and he was mistaken for Seamus Heaney, so he took the pint that was offered to him, he signed a few autographs as Seamus Heaney, he even recited one of his own poems, and he got a round of applause. They said, oh, what wonderful Nobel laureate kind of poetry. The starstruck audience in question were actually visiting tourists, so they failed to notice that instead of having a northern accent, he had a Cork accent. And they failed to notice his facial contortions as he struggled to keep a straight face. Anyway, for real, he's an accomplished author in his own right. He's got 9 plays, 2 books, and a wealth of poetry to his name. A warm welcome, please, for a bit of a chancer from Cork, Mr. JimMcKeon. Jim, how are you? Please step down there. This one? No, that one there will be fine. No need to be shying away from me. I first spoke to you on radio when your first book was out, and now the second one, which is called Paddy Nobody, is just in the shops. First of all, tell us, who's Paddy Nobody?
Sure, he's a walking disaster. Yeah. You know, I think there's a Paddy Nobody in every town, probably, in Ireland, you know? There are about 25 in Cork, anyway, definitely. Last count.
And what does he have to be a Paddy Nobody?
Well, he's inclined to get everything wrong, you know. In fact, from the day he was born, just about everything went wrong in his life. For instance, he was born at the back steps of the local maternity hospital. What happened was, when his father was bringing in his mother, he saw a big sign on the front gate of the hospital saying, all deliveries round the back. And as I say, just about everything went wrong. He was a terribly ugly baby as well, a small, ugly baby. I mean, at his birth, the doctor lifted him up, took one look, and he smacked his mother.
A walking disaster. Is he based on anyone in particular in your life?
I suppose a combination of a lot of people, you know. I will not mention them.
All right. Now, this is your second career. You had a long career where?
Well, I worked in the post office for 29 years.
29 years
29
before
years,
giving it all, giving up the bright lights of the post office for a literary career.
Yeah, I escaped.
You had good crack in the post office, though.
Sure it was. I had some great friends. You know, it's quite a long time, because I was 14 when I went in, you know, and I was 43 when I came out. But I think a postman's job is there's a lot of fun, you know. For instance, one friend of mine, for years, he was on this delivery. He was on it for 30 years, and he had an agreed sign with this woman. When she wanted him to call in to say hello, she was hanging her knickers on a bush by the gate as an invitation, you know. And he never missed a day in 30 years. You
know? He was going in for a cup of tea now, we started.
Oh, obviously, yeah,
a cup of tea.
A bit of crumpets. I was on nights for years as well, and they were, I was quite a young lad, but they were a tough, hard-working, hard-drinking crew, you know.
Yeah.
And in the summer they used to just throw off their clothes and work in the nude.
What, sorting letters in the nude?
Yeah, yeah. And the Rivoli just goes by, you know, and they used to jump in their break and have a swim in the nude, you know. And I think it just made them more efficient, you know. And they actually went down.
And it didn't matter where the letter was going. If it was going to Bishop Lucy of Cork, it was still sorted in the nude.
Absolutely, yeah. And it was delivered.
And the bishop never knew that his letter was sorted in the...
Sure, they were gas, you know.
And what about the drink?
Well, they were a fairly hard-drinking crowd, you know. I mean, they did some terrible things, but they did some... I'll mention, but for instance, where the post office was down the quay in Cork, quite a dark area, where all the boats used to pull in. Yeah. And some nights, the sailors at 2 or 3 in the morning, they saw the light, you know, and one used to play his Mario Lanza records, and they thought it was a club or a pub or whatever. And he'd come along and practically beat down the door looking for drink. But once or twice, 1 or 2 of the lads used to open the top window and put a string down and get your man to tie a 10-pound note onto the string. He'd pull up the string, and first of all, they were putting tea, cold tea, into the whiskey bottle and putting it down, and your man went off absolutely delighted, you know, drink, drink. But once or twice, they ran out of tea, and the bottle was filled with urine. No, in fairness, they had some morals, because they used to put a bit of brown sugar in, you know. But the Russians, in fairness, they have a great constitution, because they kept coming back, you know. And we became quite friendly with them, because sometimes after a few years, the Russian boats were there all the time, And the captain used to invite some of the night staff over for a cup of tea and a jar, you know. So when 4 or 5 of us went over, he'd say, look, what will you have, boys, you know? He'd say, there's beer and there's a Guinness. But I said, I advise you, he says, stay away from the whiskey because it tastes like a piss.
Now, you were brought up really with a sense of humour because you had to have a sense of humour. You were farmed out to an aunt in Dublin for a while.
I was, yeah, quite unusual. It was kind of, I won't say traumatic, but it was quite a lonely time in my life because I was 8 or 9 and 10, you know. And she was, I tell you, she was the toughest man I ever met. I say she'd take on Peter Flaherty. She, I suppose she was a tough West of Ireland spinster, you know. And I was a young lad, I suppose, a bit wild, coming up from Cork, full of energy and all that. And we really did not get on, you know. She used to weigh me before and after meals, you know. I think she was telling me that I used to eat too much, you know.
Yeah, and her own domestic life was a bit colourful.
Well, it was. Every morning I got up early and I used to bring in a cup of tea into her room, you know. But I thought absolutely nothing of she was inside in bed with another woman, you know. I mean, where I came from, there was about 14 inside in the bed. So later on I realised that there was a relationship there, you know. And she ended up losing the hotel gambling, and she went off to England with her friend, you know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, she did. I didn't mind some of the things she did. For instance, if I forgot to flush the loo, she just cut my mop of hair and stuck it down the bowl and flushed it, you know. So I tell you, I always flushed the loo. But the worst thing, what really affected me was when it was a very hot day in the summer, she used to put on, make me wear this big woman's one-piece swimsuit. Don't it's kind of all little lumpy, elastic kind of thing.
Yeah.
Roll it all down, you know, like a man's one. And I mean, I was like a pull-through for a rifle at the time. I was like a rasher. And I was like Mr. Bean with this big, bulky swimming togs on me. And I used to have to walk out to Dollymount Strand. And I mean, if I went into the water, I couldn't hold the thing up, you know. But I was about 12 or 13, and it was embarrassing.
Yeah, it reminds me of a boy named Sue. She was toughening you up for the life.
I think so, yeah.
The life that you're going to lead. There's someone who's wonderfully amused by everything you're saying up there.
Probably my aunt.
I want you to... You've dedicated your book to your wife, Margaret. Now, will you tell me how you met your wife, Margaret? Because this is a story which
we met, I suppose, a little by accident. I had a big jalopy years ago, a big, huge thing, and a friend of mine had his girlfriend. We were going down dancing to what was it, the Majorca, I think Dickie Rock at the time, you know, and he brought along some girls with him. There was about 10 of us in the car, and we stopped for a drink on the way down, and like I got a pint for myself, a drink, and say 5 or 6 glasses of beer, and the lad got a pint, and then this girl came over with a pint for me, you know, and that's great, you know. So 20 minutes after, she came over with another pint for me. I mean, in fairness, any woman who buys me 2 pints isn't, you know, she's all right to me. So I asked my friend who was, you know, could he fix her up with me? And he said, he came back later when we were at the dance, and he said, sounds the bell, you know, Singles Corner, 8 o'clock Monday night. But when I went along to Singles Corner on the Monday night, it was a different girl was there. It was her sister. There were 2 sisters, and he fixed me up with the wrong sister, who happened to be the right sister, because we were married very shortly after, and we're married over 25 years now, you know.
Yeah. I wondered, what did Margaret, your wife, say when you told her you were giving up the safety of the post office and taking on a full-time literary career?
Oh, she still thinks I'm mad. Absolutely, you know, absolutely. Because, I mean, you have no salary, and it's terribly, it can be tough going, you know. But actually, I think you have to laugh at life, Pat. Yeah. You know, you just...
And you've written extensively about Frank O'Connor, a man you admire, and a man about whom not everything is known.
That's right, yeah. To me, he was an amazing man. Funny enough, he would make a great film, you know, because he lived through the 1916 Rising, the Civil War, all that whole period. He was interned, he fought for his country, and fought against all kinds of, not anti-clerical, he was against the institutional church, if you know what I mean. He was excommunicated when he was 19 with all the other Republicans, and against all that he became a great writer, you know. And he, his unorthodox style of living, I suppose, he was in the Abbey for managing director of the Abbey at 33, you know. He was a librarian 50 years before his time. Well, he married in a registry office twice, which was frowned on, you know. Had an affair and had
His wife and the mistress in the same house?
well, he went to England and had a bit of a thing with this girl, and she had a child, and she became quite ill, and his wife, amazingly, invited the girl over from England to stay with him to recuperate, you know. Now, his mother was living as well in the house, and they were they were trying to explain to Minnie, his mother, that you know, Asher, she's a friend who lost her husband during the war, and they were explaining this and explaining that. But when Joan arrived in Dublin that morning with the little baby, Minnie O'Connor's mother took the baby in her arms, and she smiled at her son, and she said, "God, he's the head off you."
That was the end of that. But anyway, Paddy Nobody is the name of the book, and it's a terrific read, it's a very amusing read, and I'm delighted to have you finally on television. We've talked about doing this for a long time.
We have, yeah.
Your first time.
There was one this morning. It very nearly didn't come out about 2 weeks ago, and there's a problem. You know, when you write a book, it's actually taken off you, and you're waiting for the end product to come out. And there was a retired teacher in Milton, and he was wonderful. He did the whole cover for me, Bill Callan, and he was absolutely wonderful, you know. It wouldn't have come out only for him.
Okay, it's a great read, a very amusing read. Paddy Nobody, it's called. Jim, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We can